What the just happened? Mrs. Minute's secret, Loki's mysterious pruning, the telephone call, we get answers to all of those questions, yet almost none of them turn out to be a highlight of this episode as even more chaos and questions arise. This is peak MCU and peak Loki unpredictable. The episode kicks off right where the third one left us, with Miss Minutes revealing to Renslayer the time that He Who Remains and she shared at the end of time, finally showing us the conversation that Loki overheard on the radio during his time slip in the past back in episode 1. Following Renslayer's departure for her mission, He Who Remains contacts Miss Minutes, instructing her to execute Protocol 42 to wipe Renslayer's and everyone else's memories. The number 42 could be an Easter egg to numerous things. Not only is it the answer to the universe in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but earlier this year we saw Miles Morales ending up on Earth 42. Meanwhile, Ravonna finds out she was the one who took command of the army during the war while He Who Remains remained seated on the throne, which, as Miss Minutes promised, indeed ends up pissing her off. Both of them agree that they no longer require him for their mission, as it's pretty obvious they can do it all by themselves. Upon their arrival at the TVA, Loki, Mobius, and Sylvie are greeted by a bewildered Victor, who is taken back by the sight of what he himself, or rather a version of himself, has constructed. Initially, he resists the idea of heading to the Temporal Loom as he still doesn't quite trust anyone. But after being swayed by the sounds emanating from his loom, he eventually agrees to assist. Ouroboros and Victor share a fan-like moment as they cross paths. OB being a huge fan of Victor Timely since he learned everything he knows from him, and Victor Timely being a huge fan of OB because he learned everything he knows from him. Right now, this looks like a grandfather paradox, but maybe we'll learn more about it in the coming episodes.
It's like a snake eating its own tail.
Obi informs the group that one of them must transport the throughput multiplier to the gateway and load it into the launcher. This designated individual will need to press the green button to launch it towards the loom, where it will adjust according to the loom's capacity to manage all the diverging branches. Victor assists them in addressing the issues they've encountered with their loom, revealing the mysterious machine part we saw him grabbing in the previous episode, and explaining that their plan can only proceed if they manage to integrate it. While Casey, Obi, and Victor work on repairing the loom, Mobius suggests indulging in some pie. Sylvie, however, strongly disagrees and goes ham on Mobius for his casual demeanor given the dire state of the branches. She questions him about whether he ever made an effort to locate his own branch and see what kind of life he led before becoming a TVA agent. And we know this pisses her off because she works so hard for everyone to have their own free will and live out their own lives, yet Mobius couldn't care less about his. In the TVA room where Brad, Dox, and their companions are confined, Brad proposes that by collectively brainstorming, they can find a way to escape the room. Dox, in contrast, reproaches Brad for giving up on their mission too easily. Just then, Hunter, B-15, and D5 make their entrance. B-15 approaches Dox, expressing her desire for Dox's assistance in safeguarding the TVA, emphasizing their shared objectives. Following Sylvie's confrontation with Mobius, Loki tails her and finds her in a pie room? One wrong turn and she ends up in the worst place possible. As they chat, they finally start listening to one another, and we needed that, honestly. There's no way they save the TVA and multiverse if they don't truly team up. We're running out of time, both in the universe and with only 2 episodes left, so they better figure their shit out. He emphasizes that sparing Timely's life not only offers a chance to preserve lives across multiple timelines, but shows that she changed her ways for the better. Sylvie, however, challenges Loki's trust in OB, Victor, and Casey, and brings up the fact that Dox, a TVA member, is responsible for certain branch deaths. Loki counters by noting that some branches still exist due to the efforts of Mobius, B-15, and others. Sylvie then goes on about the possibility that he might be mistaken about the TVA and suggests that perhaps the better course of action is to demolish it completely and begin anew. In response, Loki tells her that destroying something and rebuilding it is an easy way out, but maintaining hope and trying to fix something is a far more challenging endeavor. She's still not really cool with the whole situation, saying that they would basically be playing gods. To this, Loki confidently responds,
"We are gods."
Renslayer and Miss Minutes arrive at the TVA and encounter Dox. Renslayer expresses her desire for Dox to stand with her in protecting the TVA. She offers those who join her the possibility of a life in their own timeline. In response to her call, Bradley aligns himself with Ravonna while others meet their demise for refusing to be at her side. And another thing I absolutely didn't see coming, Dox's character winning me over, especially with this quote.
How does it feel, knowing that all of us here would rather die than follow you out that door?
Anyways, this has got to be the most brutal death scene we've seen, or heard I guess, so far in the MCU. And the look on Mrs. Minute's face, absolute nightmare fuel. Mobius descends to oversee the Loom's progress, holding a steaming cocoa beverage. Victor, deeply impressed by the presence of a machine that can produce cocoa, requests to see it right now. As Mobius is kind of currently busy, with the whole stopping this place from blowing up, D5 jumps in and says he'll show him the miraculous cocoa machine. He guides him to the machine, but tragically, just as he takes a sip of what seems to be one hell of a cocoa, Brad comes from behind and prunes D15, taking Timely and fleeing. B15 delivers the grim news that Dox and her army had been killed, and it must be Renslayer's doing. Loki shares the revelation with everyone that Renslayer's true aim is not Victor, but the TVA. She wants to control it. Brad transports Victor to Renslayer, who presses him for information regarding his device. She issues an ultimatum. If he withholds the data, X5 will terminate him. Miss Minutes takes charge of the operations within the TVA, blocking everyone out of the systems. When I first saw this little orange Mickey Mouse ass looking clock in season 1, I really had no idea she'd legit be the scariest MCU character. As Loki and Sylvie sprint toward the elevator, Sylvie boards it alone and becomes trapped. Meanwhile, we see episode 1 time-slipping Loki running around looking for a time stick. And like we've already seen in the beginning of season 2, he ends up in front of the same elevator. Just as most of us theorized, it turns out that Loki himself pulled prisoner of Azkaban and was the one responsible for pruning himself in that particular moment. The phone beside the elevator resumes its ringing, and Loki answers the call. The moment hyped since the beginning of the season, and it's Obi. Man, talk about writers trolling us. They knew what they were doing with all that ominous phone ringing, getting us all theorizing and stuff. But hey, I love it. MCU hasn't been this unpredictable in a while, so I'll take it. But back to the episode. Obi tells them that Miss Minutes hacked into the system, and they figure out that she's trying to slow down the Loki duo. Obi offers to deactivate her by rebooting the system, a move that would deactivate the security protocols as well, rendering magic usage possible at the TVA. Loki and Sylvie react to this news exactly as you'd expect them to.
Turn it off!
Meanwhile, Victor informs Renslayer about the multiplier, but during the interrogation, Obi proceeds to deactivate the system, causing the TVA to lose power and putting an end to She Who Ticks, who goes out just as she lived, with some creepy pasta analog horror glitching and being petty right until the very end. X5/Brad goes to investigate what's going on, only to be enchanted by Loki and Sylvie, who can now freely use magic. When he returns, Brad, under Sylvie's possession, takes Renslayer to the other side of the room and prunes her, while Loki and Sylvie escape with Victor. They escort Victor to the Loom and scan his aura. Surprisingly, the machine responds with the words, "Welcome, he who remains." In a crucial decision, Loki opts to accompany the throughput multiplier, but Victor insists on taking the responsibility since he possesses the knowledge of its function. Obi believes that Timely is indeed a better candidate for this operation and quickly instructs him on what to do. Victor gets suited up just like Mobius in season 1 and steps out to connect the multiplier. But the instant Victor ventures outside, the radiation mercilessly disintegrates him, or should we say, spaghettifies him, leading to an intensifying burst of light emanating from the temporal loom and the branching timelines. As they're devastated and watching the time loom exploding, Loki says what we're all thinking is going to happen.
I don't know.
And then, black screen. Yep, they Sopranos our asses. No post-credit scenes either. Man, I can't believe this was only episode 4 and 2 more are remaining. This really felt like the penultimate episode. Let me know where you guys think this is headed, because this is going to be the longest week ever waiting for the next episode. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. We here at Flixplain post the best theories, breakdowns, and Easter egg content on your favorite shows and movies. And we recently did a full Loki season 1 breakdown video, so if you want to catch up on what happened in season 1, click this video on your screen right now.